Okay, awesome. Within our long story, we take an excerpt from that story. We call it the long story. It's yeah, in four versions. It's intro, 4 day, 4 night version. General, 16 day, 16 night version. The third version is the specific 64 day, 64 night version, and your final fourth version, which is the ceremonial version, and that's straight 4 months. And it's just one story expanding each time. And so within this story, we have an excerpt that talks about winter and summertime deities coming together to talk about after the ice age, how many moons there really should be. And within this talk, the old people, just trying to make a long story short, what it is that these deities start talking. And with us, within our culture, it's there's a very strong belief in that certain times within our culture we have a bit of humor. It's even within the deities. I hear that's the kind of thing that happens there too. Like in an opening, opening the whole discussion on this particular topic, these deities decided to, go ahead and just ask the question. Well, how many moons should there be? Kind of thing, And then here the elk deity, he said, as many hairs as there are, how many winter moons do you want? As many hairs as there are in my body. He said, hey, we just come out of an ice age here. Come on, plus you like to eat, you're going to eat up all your bush. And then, after you eat too, what you like to do is you get your nice fill and everything after each meal, and then you just like to just slouch down and just sit down there wherever, right on that, uh, and wherever you sit right there, you just take a pee right away. So you just pee right there. So what's it going to look like in the mid dead of an ice age? And anyway, they started talking to each other like that, and then finally they got right into it, and they said that because it's the center of this is happening right in the middle of an ice age. We're just coming right out of an ice age, and we should have some kind of respect for that winter deity, the wintertime deity. So we should start at what we would call Tao Pipunpisim, which is the center of the winter moon kind of thing. And that's where we should start in all due respect to that, our wintertime deity, coming out of this incredible period, a lengthy period of nothing but ice. And so they said one of the things I think we should do is go ahead and name this after the creator. The creator, that center of the winter moon should be the creator's moon, and we should call it Semantopi Sim, which is compassionate, kind God moon. Is what the creator calls himself. That's his name. It's not a description of him, it's his name. Compassionate, kind God. Xemanto. Pisim is the actual moon itself. Xemantopism. And then so, and then they started talking, they all agreed, and then they started talking about, it was the bald eagle that invited us here, those summer and wintertime beings, and we really should give him some respect too. And he should be right next to the creator's moon. So that would be Mixopi Sim. Mixo is how you would say bald eagle. So it's Mixopi Sim, which, and then so when you're going into today's, the measurements or today, the English names for it would be, you're talking about January and February already here. So January being Semantopism and February being Mixopism. And so they went on talking and they said, what should we name this other moon after Mixopisim, this bald eagle moon? They said, well, the first ones that got here in the story of how it goes, how summertime finally came back. Well, the first ones that got here to you know help bring that summertime back, the earliest ones were the geese, niskak, which is what they called them. So they called that, in the terms of plural, they call it niski, niskipi sim. That's what they called it, the niskipi sim. That was that, I guess you would call it March moon, niskipi sim. And then so the next one being, the they're saying, well, let's continue on. And here they talked about the frog. And then they started talking about the frog. And then the frog said, well, I'm not gonna I'm not powerful. I can't go back and forth and come from way down south and come back here and be here for my moon and then go back and like back and forth like that. I move too slow, is what he said. So and all of these moons have a certain thing about them too, characteristics, if you want, like that one, that particular one there, and we can probably get into that too later. Like, but the characteristics of that one is humility. So he was very humble in saying that. He to the nitty gritty. He said, I don't move fast, and you're trying to give me a moon, and they said, of course you will have a moon, and they said that your moon you will come out, you will hibernate all, during that winter, and you will come out during your moon and you'll sing your song. That's what they said. And it's interesting because this part of the area with the Plains Cree, I guess it's one of the biggest reasons why they chose this vast Treaty 6 area, if you want. If you study the Treaty 6 area and where it's located and that kind of thing. It's no wonder why, because a lot of these stories that actually take place within our history of creation stories more central, kind of centralized, including the very first place with the way our story goes, where the first human being was created, and things like that. But this vast area also is, it covers the moons in as far as geographical location of the happenings of these major things, and this kind of a centralized area for the Plains Cree. Even though we were a very nomadic people, we still kind of more or less had a centralized kind of sanctuary for us. We had our stories here, very beautiful areas that they talk about, like this one area they call the center of the earth within this geographical area. But anyway, so these beings, they started talking again, and after they settled with this moon, this April, I guess, being to become the frog moon. And of course, they didn't say April at that time, but you have this frog moon, ayikpi sim, that's what you call a frog, ayikpi sim. So that's, and then so, then the next one, the old people, they said that they got after this, the tree is himself, the center pole, if you want. In the history of creation story, that center pole is within the Sundance Lodge. It's the white poplar, as we call it. It's quake in aspen for a botany type of a term, and it's in our language we call it intumitus, and that deity intumitus, they got after him. These summer and wintertime deities, they really got after him, and really laid it on the line with him, and they said, "What's the matter with you? You should have a moon too." People sundanced, people used to sundance before the ice age and stuff, and they, 4 days, 4 nights, and they drop, and they're looking only at you, and they're focusing, and they're revolving all of the prayers, and they have a whole story, a whole 4-month version of story, and you're the basis of that story. You're the chief of that lodge, and you know, people just about starved to death, and you know, they almost die from dehydration and everything like that, praying and looking at you and stuff and calling you the chief. Why don't you have a moon? What is the matter with you? Like that, they confronted him directly. And since they put it that way, he looked at them and said, well, since you put it that way, all of the ones that are budding leaves, that will be our moon. See, he didn't want to hog this moon to himself. He said, these messages and thoughts, tatahtusak pagitik mo pisamunan. And that's how he'd say that in Korea. And he didn't want to hog it. He just didn't want to do that. So he didn't want to take it all to, yes, okay, that's going to be my moon kind of thing, you know. And he wanted to share this moon with all of the budding. So that's why they called it the budding leaf moon. Sakipakaupi sim, they call it, the budding leaf moon. So in our history of creation story now, but you know, even though the old people say that all these locations within the treaty, vast locations within the Treaty 6 area alone, of different locations within the Cree, places where they settled in with the, you know, after the treaty, they have their own names for each one of those moons within specific to that location of some of the natural occurrences that were taking place within that time of the moon or the year. So they'd have their real uniquely tailored type of a name for that moon. But with this particular one, the May moon, the old people used to say, as long as you don't forget that one. They said, because that belongs in our history, the long story, which is the history of creation story moon. So that's a direct excerpt from that long story of how things, you know, with as far as the deities of the universe that control everything, the you know, the flow of the cyclic systems and what have you, how they work together and maintain that type of you know, a very uh, mystery, full of mystery, but something that's very stable in the area of how the Creator had uh, placed these systems to be. And so that's what they said, that the this chief of that, the Sundance Lodge, that's their moon. And he's not, remember, he's not hogging it. So they call it the budding leaf moon. And then so June came along, and then the buffalo spirit, they looked at him and they said, you're our main food staple, you know, that kind of thing. And again, it was almost like they were beginning to jump on him too. So anyway, what happens is the buffalo says, well, I will replenish this earth and I will shed my fur and I will grow new fur. It'll take 1 month to shed my fur and then grow new fur. That's what he says, and grow new hair. And so that will be with our old people, we call it pinaweupi sim. All the in his way of saying it too, he says you know, all these animals, you know, these sacred deities, we will shed our hair during that time, like the horses and that kind of thing. You know, they will shed their fur and replenish this earth with their fur. And so that's what they said. And so they call that one opinaweopism. Pinawe means that they're shedding their hair, and that, you know, they're growing new hair that from that time. And so it's interesting. There's a lot of stories that come out of this too, but I guess I'm just trying to go with the flow for now. And then so the other thing was that it's important to know that during this time there was this because the Sundance Lodge was kind of the central focus of it all. That's the reason why they looked at the buffalo, because the buffalo, he was the one that stated that he would be the closest deity with humanity. So that's what he had said. He said, the people, I will be the closest to them. Me and there's another supernatural being called Mantoaisin. We will be the closest ones. They say the two of us, he said. And so it's with that within that lodge, that this lodge of this king or this chief, that center pole, he has this big Sundance lodge. Within that lodge, we have the buffalo skull, and they position it in a very specific place for that. Attached with this long story, the flow of it, in whatever like chronological sequence, and however talk about that long story in its order of recited form. So he was one of the beings that was wanted to, I guess, take an active part as far as sharing again with these other fur shedding beings to to share and to give that replenishment to the earth. And so after that, they said, then they turned around and they all looked at the Thunderbird, that Thunderbird deity. Everybody's looking at, and then he's smiling at them. Well, everybody's looking at them, going to gang up on me next, kind of thing. So what he said was, with that, they say, here's the thing. He said, seeing that he's going to replenish the earth with this feathers, and because you're obviously wanting me to have a moon too, as close together as we can with the Sundance Lodge, these beings that comprise of the biggest lodge within this area, this 3D6 area, and expanded areas throughout. So what happens is he starts to talk about it, and he says, with us, we're going to be flying back and forth, north and south, that kind of thing. As the weather changes and that kind of thing, we're going to be flying back and forth. And he said, after we fly back here in the springtime, the early springtime, nipinayak is what they call them, the ones that are, come from the summertime and fly around here in the springtime, we'll be flying around. He said, he said that our feathers are going to wear out during all that spring. We'll be flying around, and of course, this should be our moon too, like the way this buffalo deity is stating that he's going to replenish the earth. Well, let me replenish the sky with my feathers. That's how you would say that. So so they shed their feathers at that time, so it's the feather shed, molting moon, I guess the more formalized English way of saying it. So it's a feather shedding moon. So the last one here was, June the first, the fur shedding moon, the hair shedding one. This one is the feather shedding moon. So that's what he said. So all of us that come back and forth like that, we'll all shed our feathers during that time, and it'll take us 1 month to grow new ones. And so after he said that, they jumped on his case immediately, and they said, "Okay, the next moon should be yours too." They said that one will be called Pahopi Sim. You're saying we take one to shed your feathers, and it'll take 1 month from there to grow new feathers. So at your moon, at that moon, so the feather shedding moon is July. Okay, so and then your Pahopi Sim is the flying up moon. You start flying up. That's August. That's what they told him. And then so they went back to this chief over here. They were bawling out. Initially, that was the Sundance Bowl. And because of the nature of the way that TP was set up, it was 13 poles. There's a pole directly across the doorway. There's two poles, of course, on a doorway. And then there's a directly opposite to that is one center pole. And that was the July pole. That was that Thunderbird. So when you actually open that canvas like that, you have his wings spread. So he's the one, that center pole. That's where you tie that string when you tie that TP together like that. He's the thunder being, as they talk about, within the 13 pole setup. 6 poles on each side, and he's the 13th. And so over here, Well, he's the seventh pole, pardon me, because seven is also a sacred number. So the very next one, after August this year, September, September moon, and that one they said that we're going to, I'm so sorry, the July moon, I was going to say for that center back pole, and then August over here, that's his flying up moon to his hard side. He flies back up. And then over here on the other, there's a lot of other things that they tied this whole thing in with the nature of everything, like the heart and all of that kind of thing. So you have immediately after that to his left, that flying up moon, that's the poles is what I'm talking about. So you have another tripod pole if you want. The first tripod, remember, was the creator's moon. That's the first, he's the door pole, the main one. That was January. Then he had another tripod, which was May, and that was you know, the budding leaf moon. He's the chief. And again, they look at the same chief, and he's September, because this is a budding leaf moon. Why don't you have another moon? They told him. Maybe this is a big loss we're talking about. And they kept after him, like, I know you shared it over here with the other budding leaf moon and with the other deities and stuff, but don't you think we should call this one the bright colored leaf moon? That's when your leaves start to change. Over here, it was a budding leaf moon. And so this should be the two legs that stand on, and that the creator's moon would be your cane. As a person gets older here upon this earth, the representation of an elder with a cane. So over here, you have the September moon, and the September moon should be called the bright colored leaf moon. And how you would say that is waste pag-aupism. See, there again, it changes us within like I said, Treaty 6 area have their own different names of within their own locations of the moon that's, tailored to their way of the weather patterns and what have you within that location, specific to that location. So, but with this one here, again, you're looking at the big story, which is that chief and his moon, the bright colored leaf, would predominantly the whole area, and beyond, extending beyond the Treaty 6 area. And that is a bright colored leaf moon. That's that moon itself, that September moon. And so the next one became, they all agreed, of course, they were all pushing this. And then the other one was, they said was, your October moon, and that's the old people, they call that one um, Wiskaskatinopisim. Wiskaskatinopisim means changing into the frozen earth moon. Why? They needed to they needed to acknowledge this ice age being. We just came dead out of an ice age, so let's begin to acknowledge him a little bit. Like he's getting ready over there. So what's happening as he's getting ready to come this way to, for the snow, to bring the snow and stuff. So this deity, so the ground begins to change to, and what they call it, changing into the frozen earth moon. Earth is the ski, that's the earth, Mother Earth. So that the name becomes a part of him as Mother Earth, changing into the frozen earth moon. So the earth gets a chance to have a name that's part of this whole thing that happened, this ice age. So they still were honoring and respecting that time. So you go into the November moon, and they call that one further to that, that progression of the weather itself. They call that one the frost moon. Ikopiupi sim, they call that. Ikopiupi si higopil. That meaning sometimes you see it in the air, like it crystals up in the air. Higopil. The other thing is, of course, it's frost all over. Higopil. Higwaskamgat higopil, and so after this October, it changed into Ikupi, which is the real kind of getting to the real frozen state. And then, of course, the other one right beside the door pole, you have the other one there, and that one is they call that the piwa sakinasis. That's the wood chip's moon. Again, what they're doing is because there was a human being, one human being, invited to this wintertime, summertime deities meeting, gathering. He was invited because they say he was closest within the parameters of the dictates of the Creator's natural law. He stayed really close. There was only two people that did it perfectly. That was way prior to that, but he came in really close to to staying within those laws within the Creator. So they invited him. So he got to see them firsthand, like people. These deities were like people, young. They all looked like young people in this teepee. And so he sat right that pole, and these main ones they sat right by their pole. Is what they're saying too. And so he sat by his pole. When he sat by his pole there, they were saying we should try to hint some kind of a name that blends in with humanity. So, and plus this being the chief of the lodge, that this is, and it's going to be, homes are made of him too. This teepee, look at these teepee poles, everything. There's traditional, and in future homes, they're going to be made up out of this wood here. So this one here, they're saying this human being here, we should have a hint of humanity within that name. So we will call it wood chips moon because he needs to have wood chips wherever he. That's why there's a belief system. Even through, as nomadic peoples, we'd always, even where there wasn't any wood in the central plains, they'd always carry a little bit of wood chips with them within their travels, within their journeys and so. So when they set up their teepee, they'd always have this little wood chips pile back there, that kind of thing. And it was all part of that, the way of the holiness, the sacredness of that deity, that center pole deity. So they called it the wood chips moon. And there's incredible stories about that wood chips too, including the umbilical cord stories, part of that wood chips moon too. So all of these different are tied right in. And then so you have this door pole, final door pole. Remember the first one is creator's pole, creator's, and this door pole, they call that one, that's the 13th moon. That's a mystery moon. They call it, but that one, they call it the Wikwinat, that moon. The Wikwinat means the moon that encompasses all, that goes around and encompasses all the moons within a certain time frame. He overlaps all those moons, and that is the mother. She represents the mother of the universe. So the father of the universe is that first door pull well, as you walk into that door with that father of the universe. Your door pull is on your heart's side. As you come out of that teepee, that that mother of the universe is on your heart's side. So it's that way, that connectedness there that happens with these the masters of the whole entire universe. And of course, with that, her Mama Uyokawi Mao, uh, ka, ka, this first one, Mama Uyoktawi Mao, is the center of the whole, father of the whole universe, is the one when you go in. And when you say Tao, the Nuktawi, my father, the center of that word Tao, it means the center. So you're not just calling him your father, your dad, or whoever. You're calling the center of my universe, Nuktawi. And when you say Wiokawi Ma, when she's, this is the one that's going, this is her home. So she goes out and out of this teepee. What that means is this the sacred nature of this teepee itself. Mama Wiokawi Ma Kawi. In other words, this whole entire universe is her home. Mamu Ukawi Mao. So the first one is the center of the universe, that's the creator. And that second one is the mother of the universe. This whole universe is her home. So that's the representation of all these things. So that's why she overlaps all of the moons. So guess there's many other different stories I can talk about that, but just within the, trying to zero it in the I guess you could say the elementary grade levels first of how we look at it. Remember, the story gets bigger and bigger. Like each one of these moons have the story of their own kind of thing. So just to give you a little synopsis of what our old people talk about in our long story, it is a tiny excerpt from our long story. Thank you for lending me your ears and have a pleasant day. Thank you.